Urinary tract infections are quite easily fixed. You've got to look at what causes them, start to drink more water. But this is continuing. And so the brain says, the kidneys are having a problem. They're not able to filter the blood because they're so cold. Let's insulate the kidney. And what does the body insulate the kidneys with? Now remember, we don't have fur and we don't have feathers. We have fat. And so the fat cells are built up there to insulate the kidney. This is the belt. I think it's called muffin top. Do you find that today? Many young girls, they've got thin arms, thin legs, but they've got this weight around the torso area. And a lot of it has to do with the poor old kidneys are constantly cold. Hello and welcome back. I'm Barbara O'Neill, and today we're focusing on 3 essential organs for our health: the liver, pancreas and kidneys. These unsung heroes work tirelessly behind the scenes to keep our bodies functioning at their best, but as we grow older, they can become more susceptible to issues. Did you know that almost 1 in 10 people will face some form of liver disease during their lives, and kidney disease impacts around 37 million Americans? In this video, I'll share vital insights on how to keep these organs performing well. And as a special thank you for joining me today, we're giving away 100 free copies of my best-selling book to subscribers. So, if you haven't already, make sure to hit that subscribe button and leave a comment about why you want to win my best-selling book. Kidneys. The kidneys filter the blood. And they do it in quite a fascinating way. Let me illustrate. Our kidneys are made up of lots of little filtering units called nephrons, and our kidney is as big as our fist. So my 6'6" brother-in-law has a bigger fist than mine, and my little granddaughter Saffron Pearl, who is 3, she has a smaller fist than me. How important to teach children about the house they live in, which is this body. Surely the most neglected form of education. So our kidney is as big as our fist. It actually sits a little below our ribs, and each kidney has 1 million filtering units. Let me draw one of the filtering units. That's the filtering unit, and these are the tubules that the filtrate travels along before it gets down to the bladder and then of course is urinated out. So the blood goes in, it weaves around the filtering units, and then it weaves around the tubules. In a 24-hour period, 1,800 litres of blood is filtered. We don't have that much blood. No, we don't. But every 2 minutes, 1.2 litres goes through the little filtering unit. And out of that filtering unit, 180 litres of filtrate is filtered out. But we don't urinate out 180 litres. We only urinate out approximately 1.5 litres in a 24-hour period. So what happens to the other 160 litres? They're reabsorbed here. So there's a reabsorption area, and later in the week I'll show you that in that reabsorption area our blood pressure is balanced or monitored, salt and water balances in the body is monitored, and also pH is monitored. So you're understanding this gives you an idea of what the kidneys need. The kidneys need water. Because when you drink adequate water, it keeps your blood nice and thin, and it's a lot easier for that little filtering unit to filter your blood when the blood's nice and thin. So we need to be drinking at least 2 to 2.5 litres of water every day. The second one is warm. The kidneys need to be warm. Let me show you. Here is the kidney. And these little filtering units are all on the edge. And these tubules here basically weave down like this. And then into the ureter, which is into the bladder, and there's the ureter from the other kidney, and then urinated out. Considering this, you can imagine if this back area of the human body gets cold, then not a lot of blood will go into that area. You see, we're warm-blooded creatures, and where there's no blood, there's no warmth. And if someone has cold hands and you look at them, their hands will be quite white. But if they clap their hands and rub their hands together, the hands become pink, and now they're warm. Do you know why they're warm? Because they've got blood in them. So it is the blood that causes the warmth. So let's say, and it has been a common fashion over many years, to have the midriff area bare. And that's all right on a day like today. And it's all right in the middle of summer in Cairns. But when I lived in Melbourne a few years ago, in the winter you would see young girls with bare midriffs. What happens is the blood's not getting in there because it's so cold. And so what's happening is the blood's not getting filtered. And so waste starts to build up in the blood, and who's going to clean up the waste? Your own microorganisms evolve into the cleanup team. And then the girl goes to the doctor because she's discovered she's got a urinary tract infection. Hopefully that doctor says to her, how much water are you drinking? You've got to keep those kidney warms. Are you exercising? Have you stopped the coffee? Have you stopped the Coca-Cola? But I've got a friend, she's a doctor, and if she says that, you know what the girl will do? She'll get up, leave her surgery and find someone who'll just give her a course of antibiotics. No, she's got to keep those antibiotics when she really needs them. Maintaining kidney health goes beyond staying warm and hydrated. A balanced diet is essential. Our kidneys filter waste from the blood, regulate electrolytes, control blood pressure, and produce hormones that support bone health and red blood cell production. Supporting these functions requires a diet rich in fruits, vegetables, whole grains, and lean proteins. Consuming excessive sodium, commonly found in processed foods, can elevate blood pressure, placing strain on the kidneys and potentially causing damage over time. Similarly, diets high in sugar and unhealthy fats contribute to obesity and diabetes, major risk factors for kidney disease. It's also crucial to be mindful of over-the-counter pain relievers, especially NSAIDs, as frequent or high doses can harm kidney health. For those with diabetes, high blood pressure, or a family history of kidney issues, regular checkups with a healthcare provider are important to monitor kidney function and prevent complications. Well, tonight we're going to be talking about your pancreas. Your pancreas lives under your left rib, and your pancreas controls your blood glucose levels. And when the pancreas is not working well, then a person will possibly be diagnosed with a condition called diabetes. In Australia, there are about 300 or 400 new diabetics diagnosed every day. A lot of diabetes. And America, is it so in Bermuda? Yes. And as I've already looked at this week, the curse causeless does not come. That's Proverb 22 verse 2. There's always a reason. Even medicine acknowledges that diabetes is a lifestyle complaint or condition. In fact, in Hippocrates' writings, that's 400 years BC, there was no mention of diabetes. So what is causing diabetes? Now, most people are fairly aware that sugar's got a big contributing factor. Is that right? It certainly does. What I'd like to do, I'd like to go with the Proverbs 14 verse 6 that says, knowledge is easy to him that understands. And I'd like to have a look at how the body deals with the glucose that gets into the blood. Tonight, let's talk about the pancreas. Sitting just under your left rib, the pancreas is responsible for regulating blood glucose. When it's not functioning well, diabetes can take hold, a condition that's skyrocketing. In Australia, We're seeing 300 to 400 new diabetes cases each day, and it's similar in America. But why? Medicine itself admits diabetes is a lifestyle-related issue. Interestingly, in the writings of Hippocrates from 400 BC, there was no mention of diabetes. So what's changed? Sugar plays a major role, no doubt. Yet it's not just sugar. It's the processed foods, the refined carbs, the packaged convenience meals that overwhelm the pancreas. When we constantly feed our bodies these empty calories, our pancreas struggles to keep up. But knowledge empowers. Understanding how glucose impacts the body can guide us to healthier choices, cutting out these toxic foods and, in turn, protecting this vital organ. Notice we've got the liver here, the gallbladder. The gallbladder is a reservoir for bile, and that bile duct comes down, connects with the neck of the pancreas and empties into the duodenum. It's an alkaline environment in the duodenum. And the enzyme that is released from your gallbladder, so I'll just do GB for gallbladder, from the duodenum, is bile. And bile is an enzyme that breaks down long-chain fatty acids, so this is your unsaturated fats. So a lot of those fats are vegetable fats, you know, found in your nuts and your seeds. From the duodenum, the pancreas also releases some enzymes in there. And the pancreas releases pancreatic lipase. And pancreatic lipase does the final breakdown of the unsaturated fats. They're the long-chain fatty acids. So bile starts it, pancreatic lipase finalizes it. The pancreas also releases pancreatic amylase. And remember, ptyalin is a salivary amylase, so the amylase salivary amylase ptyalase starts the digestion, put on hold in the stomach, comes to the duodenum, and pancreatic amylase finalizes the starch digestion. What's also released in the pancreas is trypsin. And trypsin is the enzyme that finalizes protein digestion. So protein digestion is begun in the stomach and finalized in the duodenum under trypsin and chymotrypsin. So these are two enzymes that break down protein. I've got some good news. It's going to get easier now. They're all the big words. From this, students, what's the main organ of digestion? It's the pancreas. Most people think that all of their digestion happens in the stomach, but it is not true. Now, one of the great things about saturated fat, it does not need bile. It does not need pancreatic lipase because the breakdown began in the mouth. So people with liver, gallbladder problems, pancreatic problems, what's the best fat for them? Coconut, yeah. Coconut, it's very easy to digest. When we eat, especially carbohydrates, our food is broken down into glucose, which then enters the bloodstream. The pancreas plays a key role by producing insulin, a hormone that allows glucose to enter cells to be used for energy. If the pancreas cannot produce enough insulin, or if the body's cells develop insulin resistance, glucose builds up in the blood, causing high blood sugar levels. Excessive sugar intake can strain the pancreas and lead to insulin resistance. But it's not just sugar. Diets high in refined carbs, unhealthy fats, and processed foods also contribute to diabetes. Additionally, lack of physical activity, stress, and poor sleep can affect how our bodies handle glucose. So let's have a look at this pancreas. We're going to put our pancreas here. Here's pancreas. Now the pancreas, there's the big P, it releases insulin. And as I just showed you, insulin unlocks the door to get the glucose inside the cell. You see, when blood glucose levels are high, then high insulin's released. And what the insulin does is it gets the glucose out of the blood and into the energy pathway, or storing here or storing as there. In fact, insulin's got a one-set mind. I must store, I must store, I must store. So a lot of people with diabetes, you'll find they're carrying excess weight. Because what's their brain doing? Through insulin, I must store. You see that? Now there's another hormone that the pancreas releases, and it's glucagon. Now what insulin does, it gets the blood sugar level down, as I've just shown you. But if blood glucose levels go too low, glucagon's released and it gets blood sugar levels up. So can you see the pancreas releases these two main hormones that are designed to keep that blood sugar as it should be. But what's happening on this high carbohydrate diet? Huge amounts of glucose are being released, come to the cell, and something starts to develop. It's called insulin resistance. Have you heard of it? Basically, the cell wall says, I'm sick of the sight of you. I'm sick of the sight of you. So it starts to resist. It starts to resist. And the glucose is still in the blood. And the brain's going, oh dear, quick pancreas, more insulin, more insulin, more insulin. But what's the problem? It's not lack of insulin, it's actually insulin resistant. And so eventually the pancreas just says, I'm done with this. I've had enough. I'm worn out. So it's not long after insulin resistance that diabetes happens. Diabetes mellitus simply means sugar in the urine. Because if the glucose can't get into the blood, then it has to spill out into the urine. Can you see that? Do you know the first documented cases of diabetes mellitus was just before the Black Plague in London. And you know what this doctor discovered? That it was only his wealthy patients that it was happening to, because it's only the wealthy that could afford to eat sugar. You see, what sugar does, we've got a red tonight. Yeah, you're still royal, but we're red. So blood glucose levels go up dramatically. Dramatically when these go in. You see, high glucose demands high insulin. So what happens is, because so much insulin's released, where's blood glucose levels going now? Too low. This is called hypoglycemia. And what does the person do down there? Oh, we'll have a candy, we'll have a Mars bar, we'll have a cup of coffee with 3 teaspoons of sugar. Will that get it up? Oh, yes. Oh, no, we're too high. Stop the glucagon, release the insulin. Oh, no, can you see what's happening here? Crisis, 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 crisis. We had the CEO of one of the big sugar mills in Australia come and do our program. He told me there's 15 teaspoons of sugar in 1 can of Coke. Do you know how much sugar cane is required for 1 teaspoon? About 1 metre. Have you ever eaten sugar cane? How long does it take to get through 2 inches? How long would it take to get through 15 metres? In other words, a can of Coke should take you about the time to drink as it takes to eat 15 metres. You see where it's just overload. The organ that is orchestrating the detox. The liver is often called the project manager because everything that goes into the body goes first to the liver, and everything that comes out of the body comes out under the jurisdiction of the liver. So what we're going to first of all do, have a look at what goes into the body and what the liver does with it. So we're going to have a look at foods. And never in the history of mankind have human beings eaten so many carbohydrates. I think you'll agree with me. We've become high carbohydrates consumers. You just go into any supermarket and there's usually a whole aisle devoted to bread, a whole aisle devoted to cereal, and almost a whole aisle devoted to pasta. There's certainly a large section devoted to cakes. Now I'm just going to say cakes, etc., because this takes into consideration croissants, muffins, cookies, biscuits. We call what you call cookies, we call those biscuits. I think your biscuits are like a scone, so a roll, something like that. So pretzels, so there's your etc. But if you live on the farm, this is not fast food. All this has to be made. What's the fast food down on the farm? Fruits and vegetables. That's your best fast food shop, is your fruit and vegetable shop. Our liver is constantly processing everything we eat, drink and breathe, filtering out toxins and converting nutrients to fuel. But when we overload it with modern day diets packed with refined carbs and sugary snacks, it becomes sluggish. This isn't just about weight gain, it's about chronic health risks that no one wants to talk about. Think about those harmless breakfast choices, cereals, pastries, and even so-called healthy juices, all filled with sugars and refined flours. The liver stores this excess as fat, leading to fatty liver disease and insulin resistance. Most people don't realize that these foods can weaken our immune system and raise inflammation levels, setting the stage for conditions like liver disease, diabetes, and even heart problems. The truth? Cutting out processed carbs and opting for whole natural foods is one of the most powerful ways to protect our liver and reclaim our health. What we're doing today is looking at what happens to glucose. So the first place that glucose is sent, and it is the liver that's doing this, is to the cell, to go through the energy pathways. But on a high carbohydrate diet, we've still got glucose left over, and now it gets stored. It gets stored like a little bunch of grapes. And they're little molecules of glucose, and they're called glycogen. Glycogen is a name given to quick-release glucose stores. And that's why it was not an unreasonable request for us to ask you to exercise this morning. You might think it was very unreasonable. We're not feeding you solid food. We only gave you water this morning, broth last night. Now your glycogen stores are there, and when you start moving the body and the body needs fuel, it starts plucking those glycogen stores, putting them through the energy cycle to give us energy. It's a wonderful process. Now in a muscle cell, these glycogen stores are basically like in a prison. They can only be used by the muscle. But the liver also can store glycogen, and this glycogen can be sent all over the body. Yes, even to your brain. But on a high carbohydrate diet, we've still got glucose left over. And so now it gets stored in the most amazing fuel depot in the human body. It's called fat cells. And what's happening with Americans on this high carbohydrate diet? They're getting bigger and bigger. And when I go down to downtown Roanoke, oh, those people are big. They're big. And if you have a look in their trolleys in the supermarket, what do you see? You see a lot of this. A lot of this. So the third place that the liver stores all this excess glucose is as fat. Now can you see, I've just given you the basic science here, can you see that fat doesn't make you fat? What makes you fat? It's the high carbohydrate diet. Today, let's dive into glucose and what happens when we load up on carbs. First, when glucose enters our system, the liver directs it to the cells for energy. But with high carb diets, there's excess glucose, so it gets stored as glycogen, a quick release energy reserve. When we exercise, our body taps into these glycogen stores to keep us going. Yet with today's carb-heavy diets, even after filling glycogen stores, there's still leftover glucose. So where does it go? Straight to fat cells. Now here's the kicker. It's not fat that's making Americans overweight. It's all those carbs. Stroll down a supermarket aisle and you'll see it in the carts. Refined carbs and sugary snacks filling every corner. This endless supply of carbs keeps piling on the pounds, turning our bodies into storage depots. Want to stay healthy? It's time to cut the carbs and let your liver and body thrive. You see, on this high carbohydrate diet, the poor old pancreas is getting screamed at all day. More insulin, more insulin, more insulin. But on this diet, the pancreas is getting a break and it starts to revive. People with high cholesterol levels came back to normal. And what are we told we've got to do if we want to get cholesterol levels down? Stop the meat, butter, cream, cheese, eggs. Am I right? Yeah, and the drug, that's true. The cholesterol levels were coming down. Atkins scratched his head. His cancer patients were going into remission. Do you remember yesterday? And I do admit I am guilty of information overload. But cancer cells consume 15 times the glucose of any other cell. So when you drastically stop these high glucose foods, the cancer cells can actually self-destruct when they're not getting the glucose they need. What Atkins discovered is that these 3 food groups are the essential food groups. What does essential mean? Body doesn't make, you got to put it in. Fibre is essential because our gut needs to be swept every day. That's what fibre does. Essential because it's in the fibre part of the food that you'll often get a concentration of your nutrients. Did you know that the highest concentration of nutrients in the potato is just under the skin? And when you peel your potatoes, you lose that. We're very thankful to Jamie Oliver, who got people to leave the skins on their potatoes. Protein is an essential nutrient because 50% of the membrane around every cell in the body is made up of protein, whether you are 100-pound or 300-pound. This is the membrane around every cell, and we've got 100 trillion of them. The membrane around every cell is 50% protein. Remember yesterday we looked at the DNA, the crossword bands, amino acids, that's a breakdown from the protein that we eat. Protein's essential. You cannot heal without protein. You cannot function without protein. My son James, he was built with my body type and no boy wants to be this little. And he changed his body type by intense working out. I'll show you a photo of him later. Looks like a bodybuilder now. How did he do it? Yes, intense working out, but you know what he also did? He supplemented with protein. Every bodybuilder, what do they got to supplement with? Protein. You know that, don't you? Yep. Muscle knows no age. Whether you're 9 or 90, you can have strong, strong muscles. But building up those muscles requires protein. It's an essential nutrient. What Atkins also found, and this might surprise you, 50% of the membrane around every cell in the body is fat. Whether you're 100 or 300 pound, we're talking about the membrane. Except for the brain cell, it's 70% fat. It's the fattiest organ in the body. And this fat-free diet is a dangerous diet. Thank you for joining me today as we explored the health of the liver, pancreas, and kidneys. I hope you found this information helpful and empowering. Remember, taking small proactive steps in your daily life can make a big difference in supporting these vital organs. If you enjoyed this video, please like, subscribe, and share it with anyone who might benefit from it. And as always, take care of yourselves, and I'll see you next time.